Hello, and thanks for joining today's webinar. This is Scott Dill with Real Story Group, and welcome to our look at the DAM technology marketplace in the year 2020. We had the same topic last week on customer data platforms, and it was a great presentation with a lot of interaction with the attendees, and certainly I encourage you to go take a look at that if customer data platforms is something that's interesting to you. And next week we'll be looking at the web content management technology marketplace. So exciting times as we get rolling here in the new year. My colleague Jarrod Gingras will be joining us on the line momentarily to take us through the heart of today's session. But I do want to kick off with just a quick note that for you who are attending, you will be able to access these slides within the next couple of days. Our marketing team will get those over to you. And then to our subscribers on the line, you will also be able to access a recording of today's presentation in your subscriber library. So again, thank you for joining us today. I do notice that there are several new folks on the line, so I do want to mention a couple quick things about Real Story Group here as we kick things off. First and foremost, we are an analyst firm, and we provide 3 different research subscription offerings. So if you have a specific technology project where you're going through and looking at evaluating the vendors in that space, DAM being a prime example of one of the 8 markets that we cover, then you can subscribe to our research and get access to our tools for creating your own custom shortlist and comparing the vendors side by side. We also offer advisory time as part of that as well. Beyond that, we have 2 really exciting, fairly new packages where organizations are coming to us to really get advice on their entire MarTech, or as we like to call it, their Omnichannel technology stack. So the option in the middle provides you with access to all of our research in that area, along with 20 hours of advisory time. And then we recently launched an Omnichannel Stack Executive Council, where folks get together 2 to 3 times a year to learn from each other in a vendor-free setting and really get an idea of what's working well within other organizations, what's not working well, what are some of their stories with the different vendors that are out there, and really giving tech stack owners an opportunity to learn from others that are experiencing some of the same challenges and breakthroughs that they are. So if that's interesting to you, let us know. We're happy to provide you with details, and we're excited about our next meeting, which is going to be in Atlanta at the end of February. So just a quick overview on the markets that Real Story Group covers. Today we're going to focus on the purple line, which is the digital asset management technology markets, but you'll see here that's we are really focused on covering a number of different areas around omni-channel technology. And with this map, there are certainly some overlap with some vendors where you see the Microsofts and Adobes and Salesforces of the world that play in a number of different areas. However, there are also plenty of options for you outside of what we would call the city center, where you can look at more best of breed solutions as you're looking at building your omni-channel stack. Also, do want to mention when it comes to Real Story Group and the different markets that we cover is you can download excerpts from that research at any time. What's unique about us in the analyst world is the fact that we never work for or advise the vendors that we cover. What that means to you is that you can rely on us to get an unbiased look at what the vendors do well, but sometimes more importantly, what they don't do so well and where they could fall short for you. It's really what are those deal breakers that you can or can't live without. So if you're looking to come to a resource that's going to take a pull no punches approach and talking about which vendors will be the right fit for your needs, then certainly reach out to us to learn more about what we offer there. Finally, I just want to mention that we do have an ebook available that you can download at any time, which Jarrod and our founder Tony Byrne co-authored on the right way to select technology. It's really taken our methodology from 20 years of helping organizations through these processes and providing it to you in a really easy to read and digest format. So if that's interesting to you, let us know and we can get to the information for a free ebook download. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jarrod and take us through the rest of today's presentation. Jarrod?
Great. Thank you, Scott. And thank you all for joining us today, as always. I wanted to start before I dive into the 5 trends that we're going to speak about in detail in the course of this webinar by saying, if there's one Uber trend that we're seeing over the last few years that I expect to continue in 2020 is that DAM continues to be a hot technology and a pivotal and I'll say critical technology in people's and enterprises' omnichannel marketing stack. You know, last year in 2019, we had the privilege of helping dozens of organizations select new DAM technology for their organization, and already in 2020, we have multiple DAM selection projects underway, as well as a few assessments of some existing technologies to see if they're still the right fit for enterprises as they look to execute on their future roadmap. So DAM is hot. You know, you don't have to take my word for it. I can also look at some other data points, just as something as simple as, you know, how many people are on this webinar today. This is an extremely highly attended webinar, and I'm thrilled to see that there's so much energy around the DAM marketplace, and that's really great for anyone in the industry. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into the 5 DAM trends that I've been noting as we've been conducting some of our most recent digital asset management research. As Scott mentioned, you know, we produce research on about 30 different DAM vendors that are the most significant in the marketplace today, and we do this research on an ongoing basis. So we're constantly updating our chapters as to what is working well with these vendors, where they're a good fit, where they're not such a good fit. And in the course of that, as you might imagine, some certain trends emerge, and that's what we're going to try to highlight today. So, you know, what I'm calling 5 trends that you should at least be very aware of as you head into the rest of 2020. So trend number 1. DAM vendors are declaring their omni-channel capabilities, and sometimes I'll say not necessarily their capabilities, but their omni-channel ambitions as well. So omni-channel was certainly the buzzword of 2019, and if you're sick of it, I'm sorry, because I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I think we're going to be talking about omni-channel for not only this year, but the foreseeable future. What I'm talking about omnichannel, I'm talking about creating experiences on every single touch point of your clients and consumers that are consistent and on brand, no matter where they're interacting with you. And you know, that's sort of the dream of every marketer or anyone who's creating experiences in today's day and age. And in order to do that, we've conducted some research over the last few years that really point to a way of organizing your technology in a way to best enable your people who are creating experiences to create these consistent or idealistic consistent experiences. And so we've talking about this notion of omni-channel content being stored in a platform that powers your systems of engagement. Your systems of engagement being the traditional places where people work to build experiences. So things like web content management systems, things like email and marketing automation technology, things like CRM systems or social publishing tools. These are the places where people are building those experiences. And in order to build that unified experiences across every single one of my touch points, in a perfect world, I'm pulling from a single source of truth when it comes to any type of content that I want to be able to push to all of these different channels. And where this might distinguish itself from the DAM world is I'm not just talking about images and video and audio files here. I'm talking about a bigger scope of content. I'm talking about text snippets. I'm talking about textual-based copy. I'm talking about offers. I'm talking about micro experiences. I'm talking about data. I'm talking about discrete pieces of information that I might want to pump out to a variety of different channels in different ways, certainly, but all pulling from a single source of truth. And so where this hits this trend number one is, I think most enterprises have realized that conceptually this all makes sense. Not surprisingly, the vendors in the marketplace have also decided that conceptually this makes sense. So a number of different vendors have said, we want to be your omni-channel content platform. And so we have seen web content management vendors saying, we want to be your omni-channel content platform. We have marketing operations tools saying, we want to be your omni-channel content platform. We have CRM vendors saying, we should be your omni-channel content platform. But as of today, where we sit in the beginning of 2020, our research has shown that, or has led us to predict that DAM vendors will be, at least in the short term, the best solution when it comes to serving these omni-channel content platform needs. And I think part of the reason for that is DAM vendors have a little bit of a head start in the game to thinking about audio and video files as first-class objects, number one. They tend to be a little bit more scalable and robust when it comes to how they store their content than some of the newer content marketing vendors or even some of the older web content management vendors. And the fact that many of these systems were built in an object-oriented way, I think will lead them to being able to serve up the more complex relationships between content objects in their systems than some of these other vendors who are trying to solve the same challenges. So I think DAM vendors have a head start. So the trend that I think you need to be aware of is it's not just the big guys on the left side of our landscape here that are going to claim that they can be your omni-channel content platform. You know, I think even in the beginning of last year when we talked about our 2019 trends, we talked about this divide that was occurring between the really complex vendors and everyone else. I think there's still a divide, but I think we're seeing some of the vendors in the mid-range and simpler tiers of the marketplace starting to play catch up here and say, hey, maybe not for every organization, but for the right organization, we can be your omni-channel content platforms as well. And since we started talking about the notion of this OCP marketplace, I can't tell you how many vendors we've heard from reaching out to us in all sorts of marketplaces, but particularly DAM, who are saying, well, we can do some of that. You know, we can be your OCP, and they're not necessarily wrong. I just think that this is going to be a journey, you know, and various vendors are further along that journey to be able to provide capabilities of managing content that is beyond images and audio and video files, you know, the traditional DAM scope. But there are some vendors who have started to think bigger and have started to be able to handle some of these other types of content alongside of the traditional types of assets that they were built to manage. So it is a journey, but I think the trend that you need to be aware of is a lot of dollars are going to go into the roadmaps of some of these vendors to think beyond traditional digital assets, and that may or may not be good for you, but it's something you should be aware of as buyers in which direction each of these vendors is headed. Trend number two is around the skill sets that are needed to get DAM to work in a modern technology environment. This is something that's been building for quite some time now. I actually think the way I like to think about this is to look back over the last decade or so, and I think about 10 years ago when we talked about digital asset management, you know, oftentimes we were talking about digital asset management systems as a standalone system. You know, when you talk about where do you go to get your assets, it was actually a place that you would go, log into your DAM, download an asset, then do something with it. Phase 2 of this evolution, somewhere in the last 8 years or so, we realized that DAM systems shouldn't be in a vacuum. They should be integrated with other systems, and a lot of that integration work started to happen with resources from the vendors themselves, the professional services organizations from the vendors themselves, and internal development teams who are saying, okay, I understand that there's a logical flow of assets between my DAM system to some other systems. Let's build those connections internally. I think it's indicative of like a maturing marketplace here, but in the DAM world, I think some buyers have said the skill sets that we're getting from the vendors and our own internal teams isn't enough anymore. We need to bring in third-party integrators who have a knowledge of DAM and how assets should flow through different enterprises to help supplement the skill sets here. And like I said, this is not really unique in some other marketplaces, but in the DAM world, it is a bit new. And when you start to go look for technical resources who have DAM experiences, you might get frustrated because there's not a ton of organizations out there that are really good at this and have that much experiences here. Now, this is certainly starting to change. We're seeing some specialist integrators pop up that are really good. We're seeing some of the big consulting firms out there start to have some experience in DAM coming to the fore, and I think that bubble, that third-party integrators who do have that DAM experience will continue to grow. But in the short term, we're seeing some organizations get frustrated with bringing in the right people who have that experience. So it's something to be aware of as you embark in your projects. Trend number 3 is a bit related. When we talk about DAM fitting into the larger picture of an organization, and we talk about integrating DAM among different systems in your omnichannel stack, we're not just talking about technical integrations. I think it's so important to recognize the need of various integrated systems to be speaking the same language. Now, the good news here, when it comes to DAM, maybe more so than almost any other technology out there, the DAM world has recognized the importance of metadata for a long time. There's librarians have sat at the table when it comes to DAM projects for a long time. They've really put a lot of effort into cataloging things, right? Because DAM doesn't work without proper metadata, right? And so that's the good news. But it's not just about metadata within the DAM anymore. Now you need to make sure that your metadata in your DAM matches with the metadata in your other systems that you're connecting to, both upstream and downstream. And so for many of you on the call today, this might not be that big of a surprise, but what I wanted to really make sure that everyone's aware of is we've been recommending our clients to make sure that their metadata houses are in order in conjunction with bringing in new technology for many years. This is something that you have to get right to be successful with DAM. However, what's been happening more and more, and I see more and more, is that the amount of good taxonomists that are out there that really understand DAM and understand how DAM can fit in with other systems in your omnichannel stack is limited. And to be quite honest, in the last couple opportunities where I recommended some taxonomy assistance to some of our clients, there's month-long waiting periods. And when I say months, I mean like 3 to 6 month-long waiting periods to get the right kind of taxonomy resources needed to do this type of work, which can stall a project. So it's quite a phenomenon, and it's something that you really should be paying attention to. Trend number 4 is around workflow, and I think one of the things that I've seen many enterprises undertaking new selection projects, workflow is an area that tends to bog down some of these selections. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think we went through a period of time where DAM vendors see the importance or the correlation between getting assets approved before or during or after they make their way into the DAM, and as such, vendors started implementing workflow into their DAM systems. So you have many DAM sales folks really pushing their own internal workflow capabilities to folks, but also kind of at the same time that was happening, there's been a rise in new workflow technology that has become a bit ubiquitous between or in enterprises. You know, there's various products out there, but I'm sure many of you have Workfront instances or Primo instances. There's just the fact that these workflow systems are embedded in your organization for this type of approval lends itself to creating this requirement of how is my new DAM repository going to intersect with these workflow tools. And so some of the questions and hard decisions that you're going to need to make are, should we go with the workflow built into our DAM, or should we continue to use a third-party workflow system? When should those assets that go through a workflow process get into my DAM? Should it only be after I've gone through a full approval process, and then when something's deemed final, should that asset now get moved to my DAM? What metadata should move from my workflow system to my DAM, if any? Should all my assets that are going through my workflow be in the DAM first? Should I not wait till they're completed? Should I may have a requirement that anything in my Workfront workflow that it should reference an asset in the DAM system rather than actually attaching it into the Workfront? Are there different stages of the workflow that should dictate when an asset gets pushed to the DAM? And what about non-approved assets? Should we just get rid of those? Should they just live within something like my workflow tool, or should they actually go to the DAM? You know, these are pretty complicated decisions, and decisions that have a fairly large ramifications based on which direction you go. And so I can see, you know, as you might imagine, you know, when it comes to workflow, for creative folks who are involved in asset creation and asset approval, this dramatically impacts the way you work. And so when we're working with our clients to create use cases about which DAM to select, you know, a lot of these issues start to bubble up because certain DAMs can handle certain answers to these questions better than others. And so these are things you should be asking yourselves right from the outset. Trend 5 is around the vendors' product roadmaps. In the course of the last few years, you know, we have been using scenarios to describe what vendors are fundamentally trying to accomplish when they build their tools. We have, if you look at these basically these subheads here, there's 13 canonical scenarios that we evaluate all of the vendors that we cover on. I think at some point, certain vendors used to look at this list as sort of a checklist of things that they had to do, right? And so there are a bunch of vendors out there who tried to come up with a way that they could answer, yes, we do all of these 13 different use case scenarios. But as the marketplace has evolved and matured, I think vendors and buyers have come to a pretty strong realization that these scenarios, while seemingly related, are actually quite different. And I see certain vendors saying, okay, we're not going to try to be everything to everyone. We are going to have to specialize in some of these things over others. And so the vendors are making some hard decisions as to their product roadmaps and the areas that they're going to try to focus in on some more. So I think that this is an area that if you're looking to purchase a new DAM system, you need to be very aware of, because you need to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? And in turn, when you're putting together your short list of which vendors that you should be considering, you need to find the vendors that are truly built for the things that you're trying to do. And so this is not one-size-fits-all technology. You hear us saying that all the time, but more than ever, I'm seeing a divergence here. You know, there are vendors who are saying, okay, we're going to specialize in publishing. There are certain vendors who are saying we're going to specialize in more of the enterprise asset management. And there are certain vendors who are going to say we're going to specialize in brand management over anything else. And if you're, as a buyer, you need to find the vendors that are aligned with what it is you're trying to do. So in summary, here are the 5 trends. I'm not going to read them back to you just because we do have a few questions here that I'll try to get to. Let's see. We have a question from John. Do I see DAM replacing a web content management repository? Not necessarily. I think there's always going to be a need for a web content management repository. However, your web content management system in general might get a little bit simpler than in the past. I think for many organizations, your web content management systems and the repositories behind them became a bit bloated. And I think as people start to think about more, if not omnichannel, at least multi-channel, you start to think about just web content. You start to think about, okay, what kind of content should I be distributing across all different channels, not just the web. I think your web content management system, just like some of your other systems of engagement, can become simpler, but pulling from a more omni-channel repository and just keeping some content that is web only in your web content management system. So I don't think it'll be a full replacement, but I see it definitely changing a bit here. Folk is asking, why do I see DAM as a consumer of an omni-channel platform rather than vice versa? And this might be more semantics than anything else, Folk. I think you're right. For certain mature organizations, DAM has become that single source of truth, and I think those are people that are a little bit further along the path here. What I'm seeing is an omni-channel content platform having a bit of a wider scope here. So in organizations like yours that you are a little bit further along, your DAM might not be functioning that much differently than it is today. So yes, so your DAM might be your omni-channel content platform, especially if you start thinking about, how do I handle assets beyond just, the traditional digital audio and digital video and digital images. So you're right. In your case, I bet that you're actually starting to think about that as a single source of truth, and as you expand in that, maybe your DAM takes on a wider approach there. Tracy asked which vendors are doing omnichannel best at the moment. There are a few. I don't want to call them out here because I'm not going to give them all enough credit in the short time we have remaining. But one of the newest areas that we actually started covering this year was we added a new research area called Omnichannel Content Platforms. And in the first version, we were covering vendors from the DAM space, from the web content management space, and other vendors who are coming to market as omnichannel content platforms. And I think it's those. That's not a 100% complete list of the vendors that are doing it well, but it's a good start at vendors who are really starting to think about this. All right, well, we have a bunch of other questions, and I apologize that I didn't get to all of them today, but we're out of time for today. If any of you have these burning questions that you still want answered, please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to start this conversation offline. You know, my contact information is on the website or right here at jgingras at realstorygroup.com. Please feel free to reach out at any time, and if there's any way we can help you, anyone on the call with your content challenges, whether they're omni-channel content platform related or digital asset management related or anything else in your omni-channel marketing content and marketing stacks, you know, please let us know. We'd be glad to help. Thank you all very much. Happy New Year and have a great rest of your day.